Hello guys, welcome back. And today we're going to be talking about the 2019 NHL player poll and the final results. Now the NHLPA surveyed 500 plus NHLers to get their opinions on various NHL topics. So what were their answers and what were the final results? Watch till the end to find out. Now, the NHLPA released their 2018-2019 player poll in which they asked, again, 500 plus NHL players to answer various NHL questions surrounding the entire league, including best defenseman, best forward, underrated player, and much, much more. And in this video, I'll be going through all of them, and I'll be giving my opinions. Now we're going to first go into the best forward, and for the players that voted on this, they voted Connor McDavid at number 1. There was 517 players to vote in this question. 9.7% of the players voted on another player, but it was 63.6% for Connor McDavid, 17.2% for Sidney Crosby, 4.1% for Nathan MacKinnon, 3.7% for Nikita Kucherov, and 1.7% for Alexander Barkov. Now Connor McDavid winning the best forward is no surprise whatsoever, having 63%. He dominated that category. Sidney Crosby being number 2 is no surprise whatsoever either. Yeah, Nathan MacKinnon number 3. I probably would have had Kucherov at number 3 if I were to do my own personal rankings, but that is just nitpicking. Alexander Barkov is probably not that good, but I think a lot of players are very high on him for how much defense he has, and of course the offense that he brings too. Now on to the next category, that being which player would you select to start a franchise with. Connor McDavid wins this with 60% flat. Sidney Crosby is second with 18.5. Auston Matthews third with 4.3. Patrice Bergeron fourth with 1.7. Nathan MacKinnon fifth with 1.4. There was 14.1% that said another player, and there was 417 total votes in this category. Now, Connor McDavid winning this is no surprise, really. That's pretty much the obvious answer. But I think the biggest surprise when it comes to that top 5 is Patrice Bergeron. I love Patrice Bergeron. He's an amazing overall player, but I wouldn't have expected some players maybe shy back on him a little bit since he was starting to get past his prime a little bit. That's a little bit surprising, but overall, when it comes to that top 5, having Connor McDavid win it is no surprise at all. Now on to the next category, this one being a pretty funny one, this being who is the best dressed player. At number 1, you have Henrik Lundqvist, almost no surprise there, 25.8%, PK Subban 7.6%, Erik Karlsson 4.6%, Brent Burns 2.7%, and Tyler Seguin 2.4%. There was 56.8% other players, so a lot of teammates probably voted for their own teammates, and yeah, you had a total vote of 329 players. And then when I saw this category, I was pretty surprised because I didn't expect them to ask something like this, but I'm glad they did because it is a pretty fun category. Now, Henrik Lundqvist winning it is no surprise whatsoever. The guy is a handsome man, let's just give it to him. PK Subban, he's pretty flamboyant, pretty out of the box, so I kind of expected that too. Erik Karlsson, same thing, he's kind of just a handsome man. Brent Burns, he's just kind of wacky as well, has the big beard, of course. Tyler Seguin being there, I do appreciate as a Dallas Stars fan because I respect that, and it is true. Tyler Seguin does dress quite well. Now going on to some arena categories, and this one being which arena has the best atmosphere. T-Mobile Arena, the home of the Golden Knights, wins it with 42.5%. Bell Center gets it with 21.2%, number 2. Number 3, Bridgestone Arena, Nashville Predators, 14.1%. You have United Center, Chicago Blackhawks, 10.9%. Bell MTS Place, 3.0%, Winnipeg. And when it comes to the other category, there was 8.3%, and the total votes were 468. Now this one is a little bit confusing. By all means, T-Mobile Arena is always rocking. Golden Knights fans are freaking amazing. But I was really surprised that Bridgestone Arena was only 14.1%. That low, and only number 3. I thought it would have been at least number 2 for sure. But 14.1% really surprises me because I think some players might be salty about how rowdy it is over there, and they chant how badly the goalies suck or something. It must be that, because pretty much from any fan standpoint, you gotta say Bridgestone Arena is the best atmosphere, especially in the playoffs. I will go 100% Bridgestone Arena, but the players have a different opinion, and of course that's what makes it so fun. Now the next category is who is the best defenseman in the NHL, and Victor Hedman wins this with 31.7%. Drew Doughty gets it with 28.9%. Brent Burns gets it with 10.6%. Erik Karlsson gets it with 9.5%, and Roman Josi at number 5 is at 6.1%. Now 21.1% said another player, and 473 people voted on this category. Now this one is very, very interesting to me because I kind of agree with Victor Hedman. I would still say Erik Karlsson is the best defenseman in the league overall, but Hedman is definitely up there. But the one that confuses me a lot is Drew Doughty and how he's second in the entire league. I can see how you think he's a top 5 defenseman. That's cool. But number 2 ahead of guys like Erik Karlsson, PK Subban, it just doesn't really seem correct to me. I mean, Drew Doughty has definitely had an off season, but even when he's at his best, I don't think he's the second best defenseman in the NHL, at least overall. That's just my personal opinion, but I think Drew Doughty having a 20% and being number 2 is just way too much for a guy that I think is overrated right now. Now to the next category, who is the best female hockey player, and Hilary Knight wins this with 27.6%. Marie-Philip Poulin gets it with gets second place with 24.1%. Amanda Kessel, Phil Kessel's sister, gets number 3 with 12.8. Kendall Coyne-Schofield has a 5.9, and Emily Falzer gets 5.9 as well. Now, 23.6% said an other player, and there was only 203 total votes, so this was about probably less than half of all the players that voted, but still a pretty cool category, and of course, USA-born Hilary Knight gets it done. Now on to the next category, who has the best shot in the NHL, and Alex Ovechkin wins this by an absolute landslide, gets 50.2% in this category. I can say I agree with that. Shea Weber gets it with 14.6%, number 2. Number 3, Patrick Laine at 12.6%. Number 4, Austin Matthews with 8%, and last but not least, Steven Stamkos at number 5 with 1.9%. Now 12.8% said an other player, and 486 players voted on this category, but Alex Ovechkin pretty much wins it by a landslide, which we might have all expected. And what's really interesting about this poll, and this one specifically, is the kind of interest in the shot, because with Alex Ovechkin, it's about the shot quality. With Shea Weber, it's more about the speed of the shot. So you got two kind of differing opinions here on what's more valuable, and the players voted on that. But when it comes to like Patrick Laine and Alex Ovechkin, it comes more finesse shots. When it comes to Shea Weber and maybe Steven Stamkos, it comes harder shots. But overall, when it comes to Alex Ovechkin, he obviously has both, and that's why he's over 50%. Now maybe the most fun category in this entire thing is who is the best trash talker in the entire NHL, and Brad Marchand wins this with 21.3%. Number 2 is Drew Doughty with 11.8%. Ryan Reeves number 3 with 5.5%. Claude Giroux number 4 with 4.8%, and Nick Cousins surprisingly at number 5 with 3.3%. Now 53.3% said another player, so there was a lot of widespread opinions on this, and 272 people or players voted on this category. Now, Brad Marchand winning it is no surprise to me at all. He deserves that. I think so, definitely. Drew Doughty being number 2 doesn't surprise me at all either. He trash talks quite a lot. Usually gets mad almost every single period. Ryan Reeves doesn't surprise me either. Claude Giroux, I would have seen, he seems like more of a respectful guy, but I can still see him trash talking. But the biggest surprise to me is Nick Cousins at number 5, which was weird to me because I don't know too much about Nick Cousins, but I didn't see him as much of a trash talker. But hey, apparently he is, and you know the old saying, you learn something new every day, and I certainly did today. This one being the worst trash talker in the NHL, and Boston Bruins, Brad Marchand wins this once again at number 1, 12.5%. My boy Anton Roussel number 2 at 5.5%. PK Subban number 3 at 5.1%. Nick Cousins again at 4.7% at number 4, and at number 5, Brendan Lemieux at 3.5%. Now 68.8 other players voted on other players other than that top 5, and there was a total vote of 256. But Brad Marchand winning it is simply amazing. Brad Marchand winning both the best trash talker and the worst trash talker in the NHL just shows how polarizing of a figure he is in the NHL, and that's just simply amazing because I love that he gets under so many people's skin, yet so many people love him at the same time. You really do love him or hate him, and it's really growing on me how important Brad Marchand is to the NHL right now because he's going on Twitter and all these things, but when it comes to his trash talk, you really can't get much better than him, and I love that he's both winning the best and the worst, and that's just Brad Marchand as a whole. Now on to the next category, who has the best hair in the NHL? And Erik Karlsson wins this by pretty much a landslide at 18.4%. Henrik Lundqvist gets it with 6.6% at number 2. At number 3, you have William Karlsson at 5.7%. And Brent Burns at number 4 gets 3.9%. And last but not least, my boy William Nylander at number 5 gets 3.6%. Now 61.6% voted on another player, and 331 players voted. But Erik Karlsson winning is really no surprise. The guy is just an absolute stud. Now, the biggest surprise to me is that Henrik Lundqvist only got 6.6%. You would think that it would almost be unanimous that he would be almost number 1 or number 2 at least. But with Henrik Lundqvist, he was still number 2, but a lot of players seemed to vote on a lot of different players, and there wasn't really this big consensus besides Erik Karlsson. But I was surprised that Lundqvist was so low at only 6.6%, because let's be honest, the guy is a pretty handsome lad. Now the next category, that being the favorite sport outside of hockey, and golf wins this one with 29.4%. Football is number 2 at 25.7%. The American football, not the other version, at 21%. At number 3, you have soccer. At number 4, you have baseball with 6.8%. At number 5, you have basketball at 6.6%. The other category was 10.5% for other sports, and 439 total players voted on this category, which makes a lot of sense. Golf being number 1 is no surprise because pretty much half the league has to do it every offseason anyways, so that doesn't surprise me. Football being up there doesn't surprise me either. Soccer was a little bit higher than I expected, to be honest. Maybe basketball and baseball I thought were going to be a little bit higher, but even then, obviously hockey is everybody's number 1 in the sport. But golf doesn't surprise me at all because for some reason, NHL players just love golf, and I just don't understand it whatsoever. Now for an important category, the best goaltender in the NHL. Carey Price wins this at 29.9%. Pekka Rinne gets number 2 at 17.3%. Andre Vasilevsky gets 3rd with 17.1%. Marc-Andre Fleury gets number 4 with 6.5%. And Sergei Bobrovsky gets number 5 with 4.8%. Now 24.4% said another goaltender, and 475 people or players voted on this category. But Price was able to win it by a pretty large margin. And while I wouldn't agree, I'm not exactly surprised either. Carey Price being number 1 is honestly not surprising because I feel a lot of players still have that 2016-2017 nostalgia from him, of him just being absolutely dominant. And while he has been good this season, I don't think he's the best goaltender in the world right now. He can be at his peak, but right now I'm just not convinced of that. Pekka Rinne will be up there, Vasilevsky will be up there. I'm kind of surprised that maybe Ben Bishop isn't up there with how well he's played this season, but overall it isn't too surprising. I probably wouldn't have Marc-Andre Fleury up there right now, but even though Carey Price is up there number 1. I wouldn't personally agree with that, but the players having him up there is no surprise because they faced him so much. Now on to the next category, this one being who has the best nickname in the NHL, and Tomas Tatar gets it with number 1. He gets it at a 5.6%. Artemi Breadman Panarin gets it at 5.2% at number 2. Number 3 is Marco Snacks Dano. Number 4, you have Christian Stinky Fisher at 3.2%. And at number 5, you have Connor McJesus McDavid at 2.0%. Now, there was 80.6% that said another player, likely being teammates as well, and 248 players voted in this category. Now, for me personally, nothing really beats Breadman, Artemi Panarin. I think that's the best one by far. You can't really judge that. But I never really thought Tuno was going to be Tomas Tatar's nickname. I always thought myself that it would be Tatar because it's a Tatar guy. But there were some surprising ones like Marco Dano. I'm not even sure if he's in the NHL right now, but either way, Christian Stinky Fisher is an interesting one. Connor McJesus David is pretty much always, that's been pretty much the thing since he's been drafted. But in my personal opinion, Breadman just takes the cake and, of course, takes the bread. Now, this next category might be one of the most interesting ones, and this one would be, would you be in favor of a regular season game similar to MLB Players Weekend featuring nicknames on jerseys? And this one is very interesting because I didn't think the NHL would actually even have interest in doing this, but this kind of question kind of sparks some interest there. Now, if you didn't know, the MLB had a Player Weekend where they put customized nicknames on the back of the jerseys in regular season games, made it really interesting and had a big deal around it. It was very interesting and bring a lot of jerseys sales and a lot of interest to the MLB, and could do the same to the NHL. Now, 66.8% voted yes to this category, 33.2% voted no, but I feel like this could be a very solid idea, and one that the NHL could use a lot from. It would make a ton of money, and for some of the players that want to express themselves, it would be a brilliant idea, and it would be amazing. Maybe you just have one player on the team that has that special nickname, but I think it would be great and would create a ton of interest in the NHL. Now on to a big category, this one being the most underrated player in the NHL, and Alexander Barkov wins it at 21.5%. Nicholas Backstrom gets number 2 with 11.4%. Brayden Point gets number 3 with 7.7%. Evgeny Kuznetsov gets number 4 with 4.4%. And Mikko Rantanen gets number 5 with 4.4%. Now 50.6% of players voted on another player, and 405 players voted in this category, but Barkov gets it and gets number 1. Now this category and this voting might be the one I have the most problem with any of these categories. I'm not taking them too seriously, but this one kind of just sucks. Now, Barkov, he has been underrated for like the past 3 years, that right now he is not, I don't want to say that he's overrated, but he is perfectly rated right now. He is not underrated whatsoever, but 21% of players thinking that he is still underrated is kind of just blasphemy, because yes, he is still playing in Florida, but he's gotten so much more attention than any other Florida player this season that he isn't underrated now, and now being the captain, I think he's completely fine. The same thing goes for Nicholas Backstrom, and that's even more crazy, because Nicholas Backstrom, it seems like he's been underrated for like the past 8 years, like almost consistently. NHL players and journalists keep saying that he's underrated, even though he's been that way for so long. And if you're going to be underrated for so long, you're going to eventually become overrated, which I think is the case with him. And the worst one, I think by far, to me personally, this is just my personal opinion, is number 5, Mikko Rantanen. I think he is honestly the most overrated player in the NHL, as my personal opinion, and 4.4% saying is underrated really just does not put me in the right mood. Now for the second to last category that I'll mention in this video, this one being who is the most difficult player to play against. Connor McDavid gets it with 30.9%, Sidney Crosby gets it with 16.2%, and number 3, Patrice Bergeron at 9.2%, at number 4, Nathan MacKinnon at 5%, at number 5, Anze Kopitar at 3.5%. Now 35.4% of players voted on another player not in that top 5, and 401 players voted in total. But this one is kind of surprising in a way. Now, I think these are honestly absolutely correct answers. McDavid is the most hard player to play against. Sidney Crosby, I would say, is number 2. That's how it should be, because those guys are the most skilled and most talented players on the planet right now. But I was kind of expecting some NHL players to maybe put guys like PK Subban, Wayne Simmons, some rough and tumble grinders, I don't know. I was expecting that kind of grit to be up there in that ranking of players hard to play against. But I was kind of surprised that they actually put the players that, yes, are hard to play against, because they are so freaking good and they make you look like goose every single time. And I was kind of surprised by how the NHL players were kind of thinking a little bit forward for the first time in forever. Now, on to the last category, the most serious of them all, the best mascot in the NHL, and this one was so perfect that I had to save it for last. At number 1, the best mascot in the entire NHL, we have Gritty, baby. Let's go. Gritty getting number 1, absolutely deserved, absolute beauty. You can't go wrong with Gritty, let's be honest. Now, the best part about this is that Gritty got 69.4% on the voting, which is very, very nice in its own, but he just dominated this whole thing. The next one was Carlton the Bear, Toronto Maple Leafs mascot at 2.7%, Yuppie at 2.4%, Nash at 2.4%, and my boy Victory Green at 1.8%, but it was just dominated by Gritty, and I feel like that's what we can all agree on in this voting, but Gritty at 69% is very, very nice. And I honestly can't go wrong with Gritty. You have to agree, Gritty is a babe. He's an absolute stud. He's really, really hot. And obviously, 69% is very, very nice. So, yeah, it really does go with him, honestly. Players really do like him, I feel. And let's be honest, you can't really vote any other mascot to be number 1 than Gritty. It just makes too much sense. And him getting 69%, honestly, is the best thing I've seen all day. But with this NHLPA player poll, there was a lot of different interesting questions, and while there was the athletic version that went on a couple of weeks ago, I feel like this one is a little more in-depth. There's a lot more questions, and there's a lot more interesting questions as well. Some questions on arenas, mascots, and of course, this one was just a ton of fun to cover as well. And of course, Gritty getting number 1 and getting the best mascot is really the only important part. But of course, with this video, I want to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments down below. So let me know, what do you think about this NHLPA player poll? What were the most interesting questions to you? What were you surprised by? Which questions do you think were the most surprising and the worst voted out of all of them? And of course, let me know your thoughts on some of these. Who do you think is the best forward? Who do you think is the best defenseman, goaltender, best mascot as well, best dressed? And of course, just leave them your opinions on all these polls down below, because they should be a ton of fun to answer. But if you guys want some more Grav videos just like this one, you can click on this card right here to watch my video about the Toronto Maple Leafs and if they're in deep, deep trouble. But that is going for today, guys. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Again, comment down below your thoughts on the NHLPA player poll and your opinions on it as well. And I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Goodbye.